Inverse property. Just checking. Does anybody know what inverse means outside of math? Inverse. Okay, opposite or reverse. Okay, keep that in mind. Somewhat similar. It's not as relatable as identity, though. Okay, now, let's see. Can use our brain powers. I am a 5. What number do I add to 5 to get me back home to 0?
-5.
So what was your definition for inverse, Ismail? Opposite, reverse. What are these numbers? Opposite, right? What's the opposite of 5? -5. What's the opposite of -5? +5, right? Your goal is to get to 0. On the last property, Jose, we added 0. Now we're going to go back to 0, like on a number line back to 0. So, what is 8 plus what number is going to get me back to 0?
-8.
-8. Opposites, right? Tricky. What's -12 plus what is going to get me back to 0? 12. So if I start with a negative, I'm going to need a positive, okay? So here, what we're doing is we are adding the opposite. And this is what we did when we were subtracting. Remember when I said, oh, add the opposite? Here's where it comes from, the inverse property. Okay? So this one is add the opposite. The last property was not add the opposite, it was add 0. This property, which you're going to write down with a little superstar right there, is add the opposite. So whatever you start with, just add the opposite. Your goal, let's write that down. Your goal is to get back to 0. That's your goal. Your goal is to get back to 0. The identity property, the goal was to stay the same. If I'm a 5, I want to stay the 5. Here, it's going back home to 0, your starting point. All right. We're good? Easy enough, right? Add the opposite. Not a big deal.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I want to know. Five times what is going to get me back to home of 1? Because remember last time we multiplied by 1, right? Yes. 0? Well, let's try it. Wait, hold on. I thank you for raising your hand. 5 times 0, that gives me 0. Raise your hand if you have something else. 5 times what is equal to 1? Yes. Okay. Yes? That's okay. That's okay. We're guessing. We're trying. Trying different numbers. 5 times what is equal to 1? Yes? Oops. So 5 times 0.2. What's 5 times point? What's 5 times 2?
10.
10. Am I done? No. What do I do?
Decimal point. Yep, it is. It is 0.2.
But next level though. I want this. Anybody can answer it. I want this written as a fraction.
210.
Simplify.
1/2. I mean 1/5.
Good job. I do this problem every single year, and some periods it takes forever. And then we'll go through a list, and then kids will start giving me like negative numbers, and it's, and they're just trying. They're really trying to figure it out. And then eventually someone will come up with either the fraction or the decimal, and it's always, as a teacher, it's always like fun and interesting to see who's that one kid who finally figures it out. Okay, we're going to use a fraction. 1/5. Why? Because if I write this as an improper fraction, and I bring this down, 5 times 1 is 5. 1 times 5 is 5, so it equals 1. That's why 1/5 works. Okay? So, let's see if you guys can figure this out. 2 times what equals 1? Fraction. Yes. Yes? Yes. There's a pattern. See if you guys can figure out the pattern. 8 times what equals 1? Whoa, you guys are super awesome math students.
We're math superstars.
Yep. How many of you figured out the pattern? Nice. 10 times what equals 1?
110.
So what's the pattern? What are you guys really doing? Yeah, so your denominator on 10 would actually be a 1, right? Wouldn't it be 10 over 1? So your denominator is now your numerator, and your numerator is now your denominator. Didn't we do that in, like, I think Madison's way or Hughes' way? I can't remember which one where you flipped it. So what did we call the fancy word for flipping? Reciprocal. Here it is. You are multiplying by the reciprocal, which is what we did in the beginning of the week, but you just didn't know. Okay. Multiply by the reciprocal. In other words, flip it. Oh, look, Andrew, I wrote that down. I want you to write it down. Okay. Sorry. It says multiply by the reciprocal. I have a hard one before we leave. Don't pack up, because then I'm going slow. Oh, you go fast now. Okay, super hard one. 2/3 times what equals 1? 3 over. Perfect. Thank you very much, guys.